I was genuinely ready to write off HBAR as one of those altcoins that had a moment of hype and then slowly faded into the background noise of the crypto space. Honestly, I thought it was going to drift into that category of tokens that people talk about nostalgically, like, oh yeah, remember when Hedera was supposed to change everything? But this week, something happened that made me stop, take a breath, and rethink everything I thought I knew about Hedera's trajectory. And funnily enough, it wasn't some flashy announcement or a celebrity endorsement or a sudden 10,000% pump. It was the complete opposite. Quiet, subtle, easy to miss if you weren't paying attention. But once you see it, you can't unsee it, because it might just be the key to the long dreamed about $10 HBAR future people whisper about at the edges of crypto Twitter. Here's what happened. A regulated crypto bank in the United States, yes, a real federally chartered crypto bank, just gave HBAR the green light. That bank is Anchorage Digital. A few days ago, they announced that they are now offering fully regulated custody support for Hedera's HBAR. When I first read that headline, I skimmed past it. Then I scrolled back up, read it again, and thought, wait, Anchorage? Hedera? Together? Because Anchorage is not just another platform. They are not your typical exchange or startup claiming their institutional grade. Anchorage is the actual real deal, built from the ground up to meet regulatory standards that would make most crypto companies tremble. They have the kind of oversight, security, and legitimacy that traditional finance actually trusts, and now they are supporting HBAR. This means banks, hedge funds, asset managers, and corporate treasuries can now safely store HBAR through Anchorage's regulated platform. They can trade it on-chain. They can stake it to earn compliant yield. They can integrate it into their portfolios without worrying about running afoul of regulators. Suddenly, HBAR, the token that many institutions probably weren't even considering, is now one checkbox away from being added to real portfolios, and that is not something you can underestimate. Think of it like this. Imagine you run a large asset fund. You have a giant compliance department breathing down your neck. You can't just buy any token off any exchange. Your fund can't just throw money into whatever your nephew told you was going to be the next big thing. You need regulated custody, audited infrastructure, institutional processes, and a clear compliance path. That's the hurdle, and Anchorage just removed that hurdle for Hedera. With one move, they told the biggest players in the financial world, it's okay. You can hold this now. That is massive. Let's zoom out, because this isn't happening in a vacuum. There is a bigger story unfolding behind the scenes, one that most people don't realize is happening until it hits them in the face. And that story is custody. Not flashy NFTs, not speculative meme coins, not the latest hype trend. Custody, safe storage, regulated control over digital assets. It sounds boring. It sounds unsexy. But it is the single biggest building block for large-scale institutional adoption. Every major financial institution has been quietly moving toward crypto custody behind the scenes. Ripple recently launched a custody solution targeted at institutions. MasterCard has been building systems to make self-custody wallets more verifiable, more intuitive, and more compliant. Tokenization is becoming more than a buzzword. Major firms are projecting that 10% of all global assets may be tokenized by the year 2030. Let that number sink in for a second. 10% of everything. That means real estate, stocks, carbon credits, commodities, bonds, collectibles, ownership records, financial derivatives, supply chain receipts, all tokenized. And those tokens need to live on chains that are reliable, fast, and compliant. This is where Hedera has always quietly shined. Hedera never tried to be the loudest in the room. It has always marketed itself as a serious enterprise-grade network with serious governance, serious tech, and serious long-term goals. The governing council alone is stacked with names that only Hedera could pull off. You've got Google, IBM, Boeing, Nomura, UCL, dozens of global giants. These companies literally help run the network, and that has always been Hedera's edge. But even with that elite list of partners, HBAR still never quite broke into the institutional spotlight in a meaningful way. It was respected, admired, maybe even considered, but not held, not actually held at scale. This is why Anchorage stepping in is such a big moment. They didn't just add support because they felt like it. They added support because they believe Hedera is now ready for that level of institutional attention. It signals that HBAR is no longer just another altcoin floating in the sea of speculation. It's an asset that serious players can hold, stake, integrate, and potentially build products around. And this is where the $10 speculation starts bubbling back to the surface, not because hype says so, but because infrastructure says so. When the rails get built, the trains eventually come. You don't build a 4-lane highway in the middle of nowhere unless you expect traffic to show up eventually. This Anchorage development is like Hedera's highway finally getting paved. Now don't get me wrong, $10 HBAR is not happening tomorrow. It's not happening next week. It's not happening next month. Anyone suggesting that is living in fantasy land. You need adoption. You need liquidity. You need demand. You need market cycles. You need use cases to mature. But could $10 happen eventually, one day, in a full-blown bull cycle, with institutions entering and tokenization taking off? Possibly. Ambitious? Absolutely. Impossible? No. Let's talk numbers for a moment, but I'll keep them in spoken word format for your teleprompter. HBAR right now is around 13 cents. $10 would be roughly a 75 times move from here. That would put Hedera's market cap in the hundreds of billions. That's Ethereum level territory. That's giant of the industry territory. And for most projects, I would say that's borderline delusional. But Hedera isn't most projects. It has an enterprise-grade network, a governing council of global corporations, built-in compliance frameworks, robust throughput, finality in seconds, and transaction fees that are fractions of a penny. And now it has regulated custody. This combination, the tech, the governance, the compliance, the custody, this is where long-term believers start to get excited. Because if any network is positioned to become the backbone for tokenization at scale, Hedera is in the conversation. It doesn't have to win everything. It just needs to win something. Even a small portion of that future trillion-dollar tokenized economy would be massive. But let's balance the excitement with some realism. Some analysts before this news predicted HBAR might only reach around 30 cents by the end of 2025. That's not exactly moon-level enthusiasm. That is a realistic, measured, grounded forecast based on adoption trends and market headwinds. And I'm not dismissing those models. They have a place. But at the same time, price predictions often fail to account for paradigm shifts like this custody approval. One regulatory green light can change the game. One institutional adoption wave can change the momentum. And one bull cycle can rewrite all models entirely. Here's something else to think about. Once a token becomes institutional grade, it unlocks doors that were previously sealed shut. Corporate treasuries, pension funds, endowments, family offices, hedge funds, and eventually potentially even ETF products. An HBAR ETF might sound insane today, but so did a Bitcoin ETF 10 years ago. In fact, Bitcoin ETFs were laughed at for years. People said it would never happen. And then it did. And then it grew. And then it became one of the biggest catalysts in crypto history. So let's imagine a world years from now where tokenized real-world assets need fast, secure, compliant settlement rails, where data integrity systems need tamper-proof logs, where enterprises need stable, predictable transaction costs and governance structures they trust. In that world, a network like Hedera could absolutely flourish, and if that world materializes, $10 HBAR stops sounding like a meme and starts sounding like a possibility. Now, before we get carried away and start creating fantasy scenarios, I need to pause and say something important. Not just because it's required, but because it matters. This might shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all the money you invest. Always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. Your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses. This video is for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, now that we've covered that crucial ground, let's talk about something else that's equally important: personal crypto strategy. Because I'm excited about HBAR, sure, but I'm also cautious. And if there's one thing the last few years of crypto chaos have taught us, it's this: you cannot rely on a single exchange. You cannot assume your one trading account will work perfectly every time. You cannot assume outages won't happen, or withdrawals won't freeze, or maintenance won't magically appear just when you need to move funds. This is why my strategy is simple, and I recommend considering something similar. Sign up, complete KYC, and test as many reputable exchanges as you reasonably can. I call it having Plan A, Plan B, Plan C, and sometimes even Plan D and Plan E if I'm feeling particularly cautious. If exchange number 1 goes down, I'm not stuck. If exchange number 2 freezes withdrawals, I have a backup. If one platform is overloaded, I have another route. The idea is redundancy, preparation. The same way you wouldn't rely on one exit in a building, you shouldn't rely on one exchange in crypto. Now, transparency time. All the exchanges I personally use are listed on my website, and those are affiliate links. That means if you use them, it supports the channel at no extra cost to you. I want to be upfront about that. But affiliate or not, the principle stays the same. Do not put all your eggs in one exchange basket. Crypto rewards the prepared and punishes the complacent. This brings us directly to the topic of custody and safety for individuals. Anchorage supporting HBAR is great for institutions. But what about you and me? If you've been watching my channel for a while, you already know my stance on this. Not your keys, not your crypto. Exchanges are great for buying, selling, and trading, but they are not great for long-term storage. I never leave significant holdings on any exchange for longer than necessary. This is where hardware wallets come in. I personally use a ledger device for my long-term holdings. When my crypto is on that wallet offline under my control, I genuinely sleep better. Because even if an exchange collapses, even if there's a hack, even if there's an outage, my funds are safe. My keys are in my possession. But let me emphasize something that cannot be said enough. If you decide to buy a hardware wallet, only buy it directly from the official manufacturer, never from third-party sellers, never from resellers, never from online marketplaces. There are fake devices out there. There are tampered devices, and you do not want to trust your life savings to a wallet that might be compromised. I have the official direct link to Ledger on my website. And yes, that is an affiliate link that supports the channel as well. But however you get it, make sure it's the real deal. Now let's shift gears again and talk about something I think more people should consider: the value of education and community. The crypto space moves at lightning speed. Trends shift, narratives change, technologies emerge, regulations get rewritten, and trying to keep up on your own can be overwhelming. This is why we built a free educational Discord community. It's a space where you can ask questions, share insights, talk about news like this Anchorage development, debate ideas, or just hang out with like-minded people. It's supportive, it's active, and it's growing every day. If you're not in there yet, join us through the link in the description. For those who want even deeper knowledge, structured lessons, and practical strategies, I also run an online crypto school at CheekySchool.com. We have courses on trading, portfolio building, risk management, and more. If you want to learn at your own pace but with a clear roadmap, these courses are designed for exactly that, and you can use the discount code YT50OFF to get 50% off any course. Now let me bring things back to HBAR and the future we might be walking into. Because this Anchorage news is more than a headline, more than a technical integration, more than a box being ticked. It represents a moment where Hedera steps across an invisible threshold. Before this, HBAR was respected in the industry as a strong technology with big backers. After this, HBAR becomes a token that institutions can actually hold. Think about how different that sounds. There's a difference between we like the tech and we hold the asset. When institutions hold something, they buy more of it over time. They stake it. They build products around it. They create demand. They influence liquidity. They offer it to clients. They diversify into it. They hold it through cycles. They don't panic sell every time there's a red candle. They treat it as a strategic asset, not a speculative play. That's the transformation Hedera might be entering right now. And you know what? This kind of moment rarely gets the attention it deserves. Retail loves hype. They love big price spikes. They love dramatic announcements, but they often miss the foundational changes that actually shape the future. When I look at the Anchorage custody support, I see a foundational shift. I see a signal that the people who matter in the institutional world, the conservative firms, the regulated funds, the compliance departments, are willing to bring Hedera into their ecosystem. That tells me something bigger is happening behind the scenes. Will HBAR hit $10? I have no idea. I'm not here to promise anything. But I can say this confidently. Hedera just became far more interesting than it was a week ago, and if you are an HBAR holder, you should feel cautiously optimistic about where things might go from here. Now, if you've watched this far, then you're clearly someone who takes crypto seriously. You're not just here for quick pumps or hype cycles, you're trying to understand the deeper narrative. You're looking at fundamentals, adoption, and long-term signals. And that's the kind of mindset that survives in this space. So here's my final thought. Hedera's road is long. Adoption takes time. Institutional moves unfold slowly. But this Anchorage development might be one of those moments that years from now we look back on and say, that was the turning point. Not because the price exploded, but because the legitimacy did. If you found this video valuable, make sure you subscribe. There's so much more happening across crypto, and I'll be here to break down every shift, every trend, and every overlooked signal that could shape the next chapter of this industry. I appreciate you watching, and I'll see you in the next one.